Welcome back, everybody. This is episode number 8 of the Odyssey podcast, and today we are joined by a special guest, Jack Thornton, CityGym Powerlifting coach. Jack, say hello again.
Hello. Again.
This is attempt number 2. Yeah, we'll pretend it was first take. So as I was saying the last time, we were kind of having we've had about 10 or 15 minutes of podcastable conversation already. So the goal is to just move straight back into that as smoothly as we can. So Jack, what's your story? What's your background? How'd you get into powerlifting and all that good stuff?
I think I have the same background as pretty much 80% of powerlifters. Of they played field sports, started training in the gym, and said, "Damn, this is way better. This is way more fun," and then just kept doing that until we got to here. So I guess I played rugby up to the age of 16 or 17, or sorry, 16 probably. And then during the leaving cert, I stopped that and just went to the gym after study, I guess. So did your normal starting strength, sets of fab on everything. And then, yeah, linearly progressed that way for the longest time. Didn't understand because there was no endpoint with that program as far as I knew. It was just just keep adding 2.5 a week, 5 on the squat and bench and see what happens. So I guess from rugby, just pushing into people, you develop some bit of strength there. But did that, and then it was I didn't have any resemblance of technique whatsoever. So my back was sore all the time. So a few years later, then I just basically, but actually that was one of the things. So my back was sore at the time when I was a beginner, and I just thought, because I used to watch Mark Bell all the time, and Elliot Holtz and Johnny Candido, and I thought at the time, okay, well, this is just powerlifting. You're going to be sore all the time. So I was completely crippled half the time, and just accepted it, all to deadlift 140. So after a while, I got a coach who was, I wasn't in CityGym at this time. I was in a more commercial gym, but the guy I got to coach me actually competed in powerlifting for years, but he was he had the old school equip lifting style of lifting, so on bench press you got to tuck those elbows, sit back on the squat. The guy who used to coach me had the biggest ass I've ever seen in my life. It was just one of those things. It was he used to be able to good morning. He squatted 260, but I've video recorded him good morning to pins 220 for a double. It's that says a lot, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the first exposure to powerlifting I guess I had. And then after a while, then I was okay, I want to compete, but I want to do it in a way where I'll have a load of people behind me to show me the ropes and save me from the beginner mistakes. So CityGym was the closest powerlifting gym to me. So I was just okay, I'll try that. So did that, started working with Arthur at that point, and then did a comp about 6 months later. Just an in-house comp, super fun. Arthur was back spotting and coaching at the same time. He back spotted me and then just shouted, "Here, add 5 kilos to the squat there." So it was a real it was just fun, because we didn't know any different at the time. It was just the earlier CityGym meets were even better. They were all out of a rig. They used to do just a round robin, who wants to have a crack off this, on bench, which is as good. Just seemed funny. And then the following year, then started doing Irish PF meets, and then started coaching a bit later. But the coaching side of it has always been I've always coached my friends or anything like that, because of course I was the knowledgeable one with a couple more YouTube videos than anyone else. So in my ignorance, I coached my friends who were more ignorant. And I kind of went from there. Just stay one step ahead of the pupil.
I think you just described both mine and Connor's transition from coach to athlete, and even the origin story was identical. Yeah, I remember coming from rugby, like yourself, thinking I'm a strong bastard, like I play rugby, and having there being zero carryover. Like the first time I ever squatted, I think 60 kilos was tough, and there was a girl in the gym at the time squatting like 100 kilos. And this was the most shocking thing ever to me at that point in my life. I thought, rugby equals strong. What are you talking about? What do you mean I can't just squat 180 kilos like Barry Pickett did the other day?
Yeah. I remember going to the gym thinking, because I had all these weird milestones attached. Because like obviously I went to the gym initially for, to get jacked. Like I was always thinking, when I can squat this for 5 or squat this for 8, I'll have big legs, or like whatever it is, you know what I mean? That number, which is funny now, like I was like, I'll have big legs when I can rep 100, on squat. Like, I can rep 220 and I still don't have big legs. It's just one of those things. Sometimes you're just born with it, right? But what was I gonna say? Yeah, like that's what I was referring to at the start, where I was saying like, my origin story is the exact same as everyone else's. It's just listening to other podcasts and like listening to these like high level lifters. Even in America, they're always like, it's college football. They watched a few Johnny Candido videos and they got into powerlifting. That's basically what I did too. Except for it was rugby.
I think there's levels to the origin story, though, depending on how many YouTube videos you watched and how many different creators you watched.
Yeah.
Like if you know who like George Lehman is, do you know who George Lehman is?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, you're legit then. You're legit.
Yeah. So the first meet I ever did with Jack Kenny like what was it, 2-3 years ago or something like that. I'd never met the guy, so like just this big giant dude, like he was just large at the time, and he's like competing under 120. But so I was just handling him. Didn't have a great day up to that point, and then it was time for deadlifts. And then he's just like, he literally just said, "I'm gonna go all." What was it? It was like, "I'm gonna go all George Lehman on their asses." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." Like I understood what the next couple of years are gonna be.
Mm-hmm. He's gonna move to Cambodia, buy 15 houses. That's where he's going with it.
Yeah. No, it was just a big dude, really good at deadlifting, a little bit crazy. So yeah, that was so funny.
So what was kind of the convincing moment with regards to coaching? What kind of made you decide you were gonna watch that extra YouTube video and tell your friends what to do? Where was that inflection point?
So I always knew I had like more interest than the average kind of lifter, like as in my friends who I go to the gym with, they never had the same amount of interest. They didn't really give a shit about why, for the most part. But I think the point where like I actually took the plunge into it, that I always point to would be like, I was doing my postgrad at this point, and then I was kind of like procrastinating. I was always procrastinating watching like, as we said, like YouTube videos or like instructional videos, or even reading stuff on like biomechanics for lifting and just lifting in general, like just programming theories and stuff like that. And then I thought to myself, well, if I actually pursue this full time, it's not procrastinating anymore. It's just, study. I can feel great about myself then.
Big brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I started. And then I basically asked Gar then, could I intern or like, just get a job in CityGym? And he said, yeah, sure. So there's a lot of time. There was a lot of downtime there, just hanging out, just kind of more just like, if anything, just talking about training as well. And then coaching clients more or less for free. So just more, again, still more friends, but just you're given the title of a coach. So more friends then want to work with you, I guess, or like, that kind of way. And later on, we started like the kind of online side of it. So then I suppose I started getting actual clients. But I I felt at the time equipped to deal with it, and like looking back on it, like I was equipped to deal with it, but like the routes I probably would have taken would have been different, you know.
It's funny that you say that a lot of it was just sitting down having the chat about training. I think again that's something we can all relate to, but it's like at times you learn the most about it just shooting the breeze, having a chat about it, not being at the book studying hard. It's just chatting about it to even different people. You learn so much, and your mind goes in places that you maybe wouldn't have if you were just sitting there studying by yourself. It's cool.
Oh yeah, like because like if you're only doing the theory side of it, you never like factor in like the kind of like soft skills and stuff like that, and you know, and then just other considerations and observations that other coaches might have had that like, yeah, that training modality is great, but like it takes fucking 5 hours to complete, so it's like that doesn't work for most people. You know, like there's other considerations that like you might overlook when it's written on paper, because like, you know, on paper it's only this little bit of text, but like to actually do or to like complete and recover from and run consistently, like is in like you don't know until you've actually done it in a certain way, you know.
Of course.
I think that is something that never stops being true and applicable as well. Like there's no such thing as the, like, you know, if someone new comes to you, you know, you might be a fantastic coach, but there's always that bit of trial and error involved in everything, you know. Like you might have 5 years experience, but you're still going to have to make those kind of leaps of faith and try things and hope that they work and see if they don't work. And if they don't work, you know, adjust. That's something that does not change whether you're week 1 of coaching or week 5 of coaching.
Oh, absolutely. You know? Like one of the things I definitely had at the start was the idea that, like, you know, like this is just an example. So like specificity is king. So like that's something that you're kind of told at the start, and like for a lot of lifters and for just a lot of progress, that is true, you know. But like I didn't at the time I hadn't considered like because I hadn't worked with enough people. The edge cases to that were like that mightn't be true, where like variations mightn't be a case of like, oh, we're trying to fix technique or something. It's literally just like, okay, we're using them to manage load, reduce intensity, even doing accessories to like almost replace the hypertrophy goal of the main compound sets, you know. Like those like smaller, more nuanced details, like they're the stuff you can only learn with time, you know, like and how to balance them as well, and like and then it's all about just making educated guesses then from there.
Always
there's a whole lot of uncertainty.
They might become more educated as time goes, right? But it's always ultimately an educated guess. So your motivation behind that educated guess is kind of what maybe starts to change over time.
Yeah, definitely. And your like coaching style changes, do you know? Like
I've been through everything.
Yeah, but like say you guys probably have a different coaching style than I would. So then the solutions to the problems created with that coaching style are going to be different, you know? So that's something to be acutely aware of as well, that like if you watch a video from whatever Instagrammer you like, their solutions mightn't apply to what's going on with you unless you're coached by them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's fine. That's something that people seem to have like trouble with. Everyone always wants the right answer. You know what I mean? Everyone always wants that answer kind of served to them on a platter. I was thinking about this earlier on. Like when I first got into coaching, like you said, I was interested in the kind of whys more so than just, you know, the results. I was like, why does this work? And at the start, you know, when I was sitting on top of Mount Stupid on the Dunning-Kruger scale, I thought I knew the whys. You know, I was like, this is great. I read 2 books. I know the whys now, and I'm perfectly well equipped to tell everyone what to do and why they should do it, and why, you know, training is having the effect that it's having. But as you gain more experience, you realize you do not know the whys whatsoever. You know, we're one cog in a huge system of cogs, and there are many whys. Like it's something like, an example would be, someone moving differently in a squat. Someone has that good old chest fall pattern or something. The whole lifter A squat U thing. At the start, I would have been like, oh well, I'll just prescribe X variation and that'll fix it. But I'm sure you've been faced with cases as well where you prescribe that variation and, oh no, it didn't fix it. What now? Am I a terrible coach? Am I doing something wrong here? The why is far more complicated than just one or two answers.
Oh, absolutely. Like, say, even to expand that, like, chest fall pattern thing, like, you can, depending on which way you're as a coach more comfortable of solving an issue. Like, there's so many ways you can, like, there are so many ways to fix that pattern. There's the programming side of it, of just like, well, I'm gonna give them some like SSB or pause squats, or whichever, like, pick your poison with those. Or you can go on the programming side of it, of we're gonna do more comp squat, but we're just gonna do it in ranges that chest fall doesn't happen, and then try and ingrain that pattern. Or you can take it from the side of like, oh, we're gonna apply this huge like movement prep beforehand, that they're like literally just their readiness to squat is better, that you just see it as like, that's what the issue is. And just different coaches, depending on, like, I suppose, where they feel most comfortable, or like where they naturally bias towards, that'll influence their first knee-jerk reaction. But like, the big thing with, like, good coaches, I suppose, is just that they aren't dogmatic, that they can spot when they can start with one spot, if it's not working, then transition to the next.
I think as well, I totally agree. I think a big thing as well is, like, these are kind of visuals, these are visuals that oftentimes are kind of taken out of context, particularly by lifters or, less experienced coaches. Like a chest fall pattern or a knee collapse or some other things. Sometimes these things don't necessarily need a fix.
Just about to say.
And there's one lifter in particular, Nathan Keenan is one of the guys. I'm sure he will have no problem with me saying this. He's a dude who I spent like 4 years trying to fix things, with so many different things and so many different methods, so many different ways of trying to do it, and nothing ever worked.
Did you try shouting chest up at him? No.
A few times.
We did.
A few times. And just
that was a joke.
Hips.
I didn't actually mean that.
I just screamed hips at him. But it's funny because Nathan might be a bit of a tough example to use, because there's other stuff going on there, like he has underlying stuff that I just can't. I'm not equipped at all to deal with. Powerlifting coach just isn't equipped to deal with. But it's funny when I just said, like, look, you move funny. Let's see what we can do with that. The guy got massively strong, and we started like hitting, PRs, and when we just took the focus off this movement that for some reason we thought was bad, he started getting stronger than ever and moving more weights than ever, and ultimately when I looked at it from a very I suppose simplistic view, when I looked at kind of the most fundamental aspects of what makes a movement efficient or not, he was doing everything okay. It wasn't terribly bad, like in terms of bar path and bar position and things like that. It was all going good. So yeah, that's an example of something that probably didn't need to be fixed, but I almost wasted a lot of training resources on fixing it rather than just kind of keeping the ball rolling. So I think that's one. Sorry, TLDR. I think that's that's one place where sometimes it might not need to be fixed, and that visual can kind of sometimes be confusing.
Not everything needs an intervention.
This is it.
Well, like, that's something that, like, I know in my own. This might have actually influenced why I was interested in coaching and finding out the whys, was because I know, like, how how difficult I found things like squatting and benching, because I have pretty like long arms and I have like a super short torso and like long legs. So I was always trying to squat like, geez, who's a good example of it? Like, do you know, like one of these
Belkin,
like good
Yuri Belkin is always the one that we go back to
On
for
the pull.
everything.
yeah, like yeah.
Well, a squat
Yuri
even is
Belkin
just-
are like a like Yuri Belkin or a or like an Austin Perkins or something. That some people with particularly short femurs, you know, who can just, they can't not stay upright, you know. Or so I have longer legs, shorter torso. It's, I can drive my knees forward as much as I want, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm still going to fold over a little bit. I think people talk. I think I've heard Joey Flex say it, like refer to as taco boys, but like just being, it is what it is. Just being aware of that, like that, at a certain point, that's the position you're going to be strongest in. Like the reason you're like that is because you're keeping the bar over midfoot. So fuck it. If you can move more weight, who cares?
Exactly.
You know, like you're not going to inherently get injured because you're more tilted over. Like that's just incorrect. It's one of those things.
One of those things.
And yeah, like I think it's just a case, like when there's more examples of people who squat like that well, it's easier to kind of see that, you know. Because the ones I look at are like Ben Rice squats with a super wide stance, like pretty folded over, but squats like in like 700 pounds pretty comfortably. You know, not everyone is going to squat like Bryce Lewis, or I always default to 105s because that's what I am. But you know, I'm pick whatever class you want. You know, not everyone's going to stay super upright.
They're everywhere as well. You'll find these, I don't want to call them outliers, but in every weight class. So you can't just say, oh, he squats like that because he's fucking huge or because his hips are gigantic. You'll find lifters who are 66, 74 who squat atypical, for want of a better term. Jack, you said there about kind of influences on coaching philosophy, like you'll have your own ways to address issues. What have been some of the biggest influences on yours? I'd imagine it's going to be the CityGym lifters and the CityGym coaches like Arthur.
Yeah, definitely. Like, because I work like so early on, I worked with Arthur. He definitely influenced a lot of what I did. You know, like Arthur loves these 5x5s, but as I went on, I started to kind of like expand and broaden my horizons in some ways and get kind of influenced by different folks. Like I did the emergent strategy courses for a long time. Only recently stopped doing them. I don't use those as much. I just like knowing that stuff. But a lot of it is knowing the kind of like theoretical, like science and research, and then just applying it. And then just, as you said, like we have those long chats, me, Alex, at the moment now, it's just me, Alex, and Gary up in the office, just chatting about programming and stuff, you know, like different things, different fixes. And even just like typical workloads that we use with people, you know, like, I think it was in vogue there like a couple of years ago that, as I said, like specificity thing, that everyone would be squatting X amount of days a week, everyone would be benching fucking 7 days a week, and then everyone would be deadlifting at least twice, you know. But I think we've kind of drifted away from that quite a bit, just because like there isn't a need for it, you know. I think we're a lot like, I won't speak for lads, but I think I'm a lot of the opinion that like, man, if I can get the person doing the least amount of work and still making progress, that's a huge bonus. You know, I want to get them doing as little as possible while still progressing, because then you have so many directions to go afterwards. You know, like you're roadblock, nice one. Let's add another set. You know,
that's
easy.
So important, man.
Yeah.
That's so important. Giving yourself options rather than like nailing yourself to the cross on day one. Like,
did you see this? I think it was up online yesterday. Somebody used a toothpaste analogy. Like when you have a full tube of toothpaste, you don't squeeze the life out of it and get as much out of it as you can straight away. You do as much as you need to do to get it, and you always have the option to squeeze the shit out of it and get more.
But what if I get my teeth whiter with more toothpaste? What if I?
That's
true.
What if I can?
True. Oh man, honestly so envious of that. You're from Limerick, right? You're from Limerick City or
Yeah,
thereabouts. Yeah.
yeah.
So jealous of being from Connor. You too, having like chaos and other things. I'm from nowhere, pretty much the middle of nowhere. Small town, West Cork, and so I made every mistake possible. Like I did every bad program. I ran Smolov Junior on all 3 lifts for weeks, trying to be like Barry Piggott. I only remembered this the other day. I was telling someone so right after that second cycle of Smolov Junior, I ran a third cycle of Smolov Junior, but I was doing it into a competition, and in my mind, I'm like, oh damn, I need to peak. I didn't really know what peaking was, other than like you said, that Johnny Candido video I may have watched at the time where he used the word, and maybe an Omar Isuf video as well. And I was like, oh, I'll just do Bulgarian method on top of Smolov Junior. So I was doing my my working single, and then my 6x6, my what is it, 7x5, 8x4, 10x3.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really envious of the fact that you guys had people there to say, hey dude, come on, what are you doing?
You see,
do a 5x5 or something.
Yeah, I think I definitely appreciate the the help and the fact people were around, but like the thing was, when I started, we were all new. Do you know what I mean? So like we all made those mistakes together. So there was a stint there of like, it was probably some of the funnest training in CityGym like ever, but it was terrible. Like like we're just, everyone was basically just maxing out. It's like, how fucking heavy can you go on a 5x5? Like, let's really push it, but like, we know now that's not what you do, like now what I'm saying is, I'm talking like 5 years ago. Like this was a long time ago, but like it was literally just a case of like, it's probably more akin to like those kind of like West Side gyms of like people, like individual lifters would get competitive in their own pockets and then kind of go like, oh well, he did this, so I'm gonna try and do it for double or whatever, like it was funny at the time. We learned a lot about load management and injury prevention in that time, like it's definitely stood to us, but yeah, that was a while. Like we still made mistakes, but I think we're at the point now, like if anyone comes on new, so like Alex was the newest addition to like coaching in CityGym, who's doing like great now, but like his starting point was so much better than ours. Like the training wasn't as fun or interesting, do you know what I mean? Like which might have turned off some of the old heads in there, but like it's so much more productive. Like they're doing like way, like the quality of work is so much better, and they're just getting more done in less time. Like it's just, there's less bullshit. There's maybe like a couple of weeks of pretty hyped up training, as a collective, and then the rest of the year is just doing them accessories, building a base.
That's kind of the CityGym origin story then.
Yeah,
the basically origin of the hype beast that is CityGym.
Yeah, everyone except so the hype beast story, I think, kind of came and went. Well, not went, but like started really with like Jack Kenny, like that everyone refers to. But like he was way later. Like we were training intelligently. It's just he performs best going out of his mind. Like as in, like he would like freak out for a deload. Like, and I remember writing deloads for him. I was like, yeah, there's no way. Like, as in, I just wanted him to take a mental break this week. So I really undershot literally everything. But he was going, like, the guy could bench like 190 or 200 at the time, and like he was going mental for a set of 5 with 120, and it was just like, all right, like you just can't, like,
you do you, brother.
But that's like that's how he performed at the time. Now that he's training in his shed most of the time, I don't know if he still really does that, but
takes a lot of maturity as a coach to be like, that's the guy, that's what he needs. Like, you might want this thing, you might think this thing is important, but if he as an athlete needs or feels like that's the best kind of set of circumstances that he performs in, then You know, like I've had it happen where I would be working with someone who's the total opposite, you know, someone who like is so calm, it's unsettling. And they'll approach like you know, a heavy single with the opposite of hype, like almost like a introversion, you know. And maybe in the past I would have been inclined to be like, come on, get hyped, get get excited for it. Whereas now it's just like, if that's you, that's you.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Like that's something I will admit that like cuz I'm similar in that way that like I in a meet day, like the only time my fucking heartbeat goes over 60 is when like when a lifter is just if they're about to miss a lift or some shit like that, or something weird's happening, you know. That's the only time I'm ever out of my comfort zone there, you know. So like and like it's just so out of character for me to fucking beat the shit out of someone, like tell them like, come on, you gotta go, you need this, you know, like all this kind of stuff, you know. So like the last nationals, Jesus Christ, like 2 years ago nearly at this point, like a year and a half.
Oh man.
But you know, like I know people perform better when they're getting, you know, smacked to shit. So like I'll like that's the joys of CityGym. Like they have their training partners who also come up, and we can just bring them into the training room, you know. Have like some other like Paddy Garvey was in there with us, like headbutting Jack Kenny before his like lifts, you know. Yeah, it's just being aware of what you are as well, you know. Being aware of what you are and what they are. Yeah, like as in like hype is totally fine, you know. Like if someone needs to bring it to 90, like to 80% or 90% to get a lift, then cool, that's fine, you know.
100%. So we've already kind of covered a lot of it, but tell us a little bit about specifically what your coaching kind of philosophy and the process itself entails. Like if someone new was to come to you, they have a little bit of experience, what would be kind of your approach?
Yeah. So I suppose I've never really thought about this, to be honest. It's just something, you know, just kind of do. So like I suppose how it kind of looks is we talk about training for a while, usually like half an hour. You know, we'll have like a phone call. I'll get like the rundown of their, you know, their lifts, how they feel like they break down, what they feel like kind of works, you know, what they've felt like works in the past, any injuries, you know, get an idea of like, you know, when you had like that niggly knee or like some tweaks in your back, like what were the conditions around it? You know, was it like stress? Was like programming crazy, or like what's going on? You know, try and get like as detailed a picture as I can, and then pretty much go from there. Like start them off like work wise on a little bit less than what they were doing in their previous block, and just take it from there. Like usually the first like 4 to 8 weeks maybe is just getting them used to like training with me, and like getting them into that kind of spot of like, okay, we've avoided the transitional like injury kind of potential, you know. And then just slowly start to build them up until they're that's basically like a hypertrophy block, you know, if you think about it like in a linear sense, you know. When we're getting used to each other, and then we'll just start to ramp things up then from there, until we're hitting PBs, and then we'll back off again a little bit. Like I think the most recent one of those I had was Dawn. She's the best example, I think, because like we just took whatever block she was running, did this kind of like transitional block of like 4 weeks that like I don't think anything surpassed like an RP 6 or 7 really, you know, on the competition movement work. But then accessories, like we'd push things like, you know, push-ups or Bulgarian split squats or something like that, you know, we'd push those a little bit harder just so she's doing some work. And then I think we're 16 weeks in, we're starting to hit PBs now, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
awesome.
I think that's basically the summary. Like I'll like that can change, you know, like but that's the typical route I have for people. Like I typically don't take people on if they're super close to a meet, or I'll tell them to, you know, if someone hits me up saying, yeah, I'm 4 weeks out, you know, like, what do we do? It's like, just keep running what you're running, and I'll just handle you on meet day and see what happens. You know, like, as in
Smolov Jr.
I know, yeah. Well, I'd say, like, if they told me that, I'd probably write something. You know, I'd be like, oh, geez, just to save them a month of their life. You know, but yeah, that kind of, yeah, the whole COVID situation, as far as like taking on new people, is kind of handy, because, like, you know, you're in no rush to go anywhere. Like, you know, like, as long as they understand that, like, you know, this is a longer term process, that, like, I'm not going to give you like an RP8 fresh out the gate, you know, an RP8, you know, like, as in, just there's too much opportunity to like fuck shit up. But yeah,
so an acclimation period is what you would employ with somebody, just to not necessarily scale them down, but just to test the water and see where they're at, and see how they're responding.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, like, as in, the acclimation period is like just to see how they respond, you know, like, as in, like, they might be doing too much work previously, so like, if we can reduce that and still get the same progress, or like have them feeling the same, then like, sweet, like, that's just so much better. In my mind, it's like long term, you know. Like, I don't like the, yeah, like, just makes sense, you know, to me anyway. That's how I'd kind of view it, and like, that fits in with the rest of my biases, you know.
It's cool that you say that. Obviously, I mean, powerlifting is a long-term sport. Like, it's anyone who has any bit of success. Obviously, there are outliers to this, but anyone who has any bit of success in powerlifting is someone who's been around for 10 years. Like, how long has Bryce Lewis been powerlifting? Like 15 years or something like that, you know? And he's still getting better. Like, what he posted some deadlift PR the other day. He doubled something huge, 800 pounds or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that's a cool approach. Like, making sure that, I suppose, you're making long-term considerations as well is fantastic. It's nice to hear. Firstly,
yeah, that's one of the more like interesting misconceptions that people have. You know, they're just like, they look at lifter X. So I think for me, it was like looking at Mike T, right? And I was like, because he was one of the first lifters I saw like in person, you know? And I was like, Jesus Christ, he is enormous. Like, as just a human, like, you totally understand why he can lift the numbers he can when you see him, you know? And I was like, someday I want to look like that. And like, I was just thinking about it, like, Jesus, so I need to do more of this, that, or the other. And I was like, no, I just need to kind of keep doing what I'm doing for 15 years and hope for the best. You know, like, because he's one of the examples of those people that like have literally been training since he was in military school, and when he's in his like 20s, like, you know, well, he was training earlier than that as well, but you know, he's been in that region of like 120 kilos for like 15 plus years, you know. So yeah, like, that's something that's really, really overlooked, you know. Some tricep push, some tricep extensions isn't gonna give you those kind of results, you know. Like, as in, yeah, over 10, 15 years, totally, but like, not in the immediate, especially as a natural athlete. Like, there's no short-changing time, you know.
As we talked about, you might, if you can get all of the benefit that doing those extra sets and that maybe, you know, set of tricep extensions or whatever, if you can get all that benefit with just doing 1 or 2 sets of bench press through the actual competition movement, through the movement we're trying to improve, amazing. You know?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say with that is, like, some people, I don't think the competition, this is where we might differ, which is just interesting, I guess. I just think some people, the competition movements, if they can do it, sweet, but like, some people just aren't built for that. Like, their shoulders don't hold up well to bench, or they're a really efficient bencher that like, they just have such a short range of motion from like a hypertrophy perspective. It's just not worth the same kind of bang for buck. Like, I know in my case, like, I know like, squat volume doesn't, like, not that it doesn't work, but like, if I want to build, I'm interested in building a squat, totally, I'm going to squat, which is why I squat. But if I'm trying to develop quads for a squat. That's probably not the absolute best movement I can use to work on that, because I don't have a huge amount of ankle. Like, I do have ankle dorsiflexion, but I'm not one of these super upright squatters, so my hips and back take a decent amount of load. Do you know what I mean? Like like they will take a decent amount of load, whereas how like something like a belt squat or leg press can be like, I can get the hypertrophy we're looking for that we might have used like a set of 10 for on squat, except for I won't acquire the same amount of fatigue. Do you know that kind of way?
Absolutely.
Like, that's the only, like, yeah, I'd be much more like specificity until it doesn't work the same way, you know?
Of course.
Yeah, you get no
I
arguments
think
from us, I'd say.
Yeah, I think we totally agree with you there on that one.
Yeah.
I think maybe where we might not disagree but differ is like in the goal there. Like I rarely these days anyway will dedicate like a block solely to hypertrophy. You know, I might have blocks where we're not doing any competition movements for literally all of the reasons that you said, but it wouldn't necessarily be with the goal of creating hypertrophies that will nicely and very conveniently transfer over to that competition squat. You know what I mean? It might be just for hey, the lifter wants to do some belt squats, or they want to do some fucking single leg work because they saw a Squat U article or something like that. You know, that's a joke, by the way. But
Why would you hurt me like this?
But yeah, I think by and large we totally agree with you there on that one. So
Yeah.
cool.
I'd be similar. Like, as in, at the end of the day, we are like I think that attitude of like, because like I phrase it as a hypertrophy block, and I use like, you know, the old fingers like that, because I I know that's not the reason for it. It's like, in my case, I say hypertrophy because everyone thinks of just backing off from like absolute intensity, and that's what it is. You know, it's like I'll still prescribe like light singles and stuff. You know, like during these hypertrophy blocks for people who are like more advanced in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the goal is never not squat, bench, and deadlift. You know,
I think it's like I mean, we talked about this already, but the adaptation you're looking to make within any block is never as clear as like one word. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, we don't actually know what exact physiological adaptations are being made. That's kind of a made up thing. You know what I mean? Like, if I prescribe you this and you get better in some way that we can some tangible way, you know, then amazing. We'll assume that you adapted. But other than like literally your strength increasing or literally load going up on the bar over the course of a block under the kind of conditions that you set for the block, these adaptations are nearly immeasurable in their total sum. You know what I mean? So it's almost pointless to even talk about that. You know. Or to even try and communicate to a lifter like, hey, this block we're gonna create this exact physiological adaptation. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
Awesome. Who are some of your coaching inspirations? Who are some of the people that you've kind of looked to over the years for? We kind of pretty much already asked this, but like, are there any more prominent names in the industry that you kind of took from, or is it a big mashup?
Yeah, it is a big melting pot of just people I follow, and like, you know, like the obvious ones are like RTS, like, you know, they like, as far as just like tracking all variables and trying to make it as scientific as possible, like that's awesome. So those kind of, I guess, for the programming side, and barbell medicine, just their kind of like load management stuff, and like their stuff on injury risk attached to load management is just like really awesome. Where I find like where I don't necessarily agree with them, or I'm not sure like that they're painting the entire picture, is like that they're just like, I don't know. I get the sense from barbell medicine that they just think it doesn't matter how you fucking move. Like, like I care more about technique, I guess, than that. A little bit more. Like I don't think it's 100%. Just put the right number of reps in the tank there, and then you're fine. So I like them for that. As far as like the more like softer skills, I absolutely love Bryce Lewis as just a person, and just I've been literally watching him for years. Like he's in the golden 105 weight class, and he's totally overlooked. So I want to put that out there.
This is true.
So like he's kind of like softer skills and psychology stuff. Like it's a little bit more than I'm interested in, but I really like his thoughts and opinions on stuff. Like one of my favorite podcasts I think I've listened to in the last while is a while ago, where Mike T actually brought on Bryce to basically talk smack about emerging strategies, where he's basically just saying like, what's wrong with it? And then Bryce kind of went into it. He's like, well, I think that's too heavy, like that's awesome, and then I suppose that's more or less it. Like I suppose, like I started working recently with a coach, John Song. So I'm sure he'll color and inform some of my coaching as well in time. Like as I, because like that's what a lot of my coaching is naturally going to be influenced by, is like my own experiences with different movements, like and how they're applied. Because like learning from someone like Mike T or anything like that, you can get a lot of like, it's the same thing. You can get a lot of the theory and the why, but you can't like feel why it worked. Like you can't feel like, okay, these are the set of cues he used in this program. And then you can just take it at face value from Mike T. Whereas like when you're actually doing a program for 4 weeks with a certain set of cues, you can understand like how it's meant to feel, like what, like the why it's done, and like and what it like really looks like, because just a lot of them, even like I think the new guys in the block, data driven strength, are kind of like making a lot of waves, that kind of. But like I've seen a bunch of videos, but I still don't understand what that actually looks like. Do you know what I mean? How they program, so so yeah, I think just the combination, like the people I've worked with, coaching wise, and then those Mike T, Bryce Lewis, and Barrel Medicine are probably the biggest influences.
Awesome. Cool, man. I must say, actually, I like Bryce Lewis a lot as well. He put up a video, I think it was probably around a year ago now or so. It was like a love letter to John Kiley, I think it was called. One of the best powerlifting resources on the internet, in my opinion. Just talks about the problem with periodization. And I thought it was a fantastic video. If anyone listening hasn't seen that video, I think that's what it's called. Maybe I'm wrong. That's what it's called. Watch that, because I love that it promotes, in some sense, like an empathy-driven approach to powerlifting, and that's something that I credit entirely to RTS, and why I would credit them as being some of my biggest inspirations. Jim Ellie is a guy from RTS who I've had a lot of conversations with about this. Like empathy is so damn important when you're working with a person. When you're working one-to-one on a in a close nature with an individual, just having an empathetic approach is so important, but also to a lot of people who aren't used to it, very jarring, because the kind of culture up until very recently was like, what's the trope, Connor? Fuck your feelings. Fuck your feelings. Add another set, put more weight on. That's kind of been probably for the large majority of powerlifting's existence, the
stick
approach
to the
that has
program.
been taken.
Fuck your feelings.
Exactly. I'm the coach. I'm right because I assigned myself title of the coach. Yeah, So I really, really like that video, and I like what RTS has done for kind of pushing that that empathetic approach out there a bit more as well, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, like that like having that certain level of empathy is like insanely important. Like I think for powerlifting, just to get someone like of all levels, like depending on like different people, just need different amounts, like we've all had one of those bad sessions where like, fuck, like I hate everything, and like like that can be totally diffused by just a short conversation, you know? It's like just putting things into perspective for you, just giving you a chance to like, okay, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened, you know? Like oftentimes like I've a few lifters who like, you know, they have like reoccurring like small like niggles or injuries. And like it is that case like at the start of the conversation they're like feeling pretty down, and then like once we put things into perspective, made a plan, or like that they know a plan is made, you know, like they're not just, this is like that this like lower back pain or hip pain or whatever isn't like the extended future, it's just the short term, or we're going to solve it quick, like that we're going to put our best bet to solve it, you know, whether that comes from like a deload or, you know, technique changes or whatever, you know. As long as they know there's a plan and like that there is someone there with them, like that's what coaching is like, huge. You know, it's like we don't go around saying we're like programmers, you know, or like spreadsheet makers, you know. Like those kind of things are huge.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Helping them feel heard and understood can even lessen the blow of a pain experience during a set or whatever, and can say, look, this is going to be okay, this isn't a sentence, this isn't something that I have to just fucking live with or put up with. This guy has been through it, I think can help significantly with empathy, and they're going to work with me through it. Just makes a massive difference.
Yeah. And like whether as a coach, like whether you just decide, okay, I'm going to be empathetic, or if you've had bad experiences in the past with other coaches, or like just bad experiences in general, I think that kind of colors like I've definitely had bad experiences with coaches where like I've had that feeling of like, fuck, like I've gone backwards, or like this shit hurts too much to complete the sessions, you know. And like that's what's definitely colored mine, is, and like, yeah, I'm just not letting athletes have that, you know, like I'm not putting them through that kind of shit that's, I know, is so avoidable now that we're all removed from it. But like, you know, I know at the time I was like, yeah, my knees really fucking hurt. Like, and there's been no consideration made for that. Cool. So yeah, like you learn things from good coaches and bad coaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah. True. Very true. Very true. Very true. How's your own training going? You mentioned you picked up a relatively new coach, right? Have you been working with John for long?
No. Me and John have been working we're literally just finishing the first block. So it's pretty cool. Like he is he's an interesting guy, because like he is a physical therapist in America. He's a powerlifting coach, and he kind of associates with people I really like as well. So like he's been coached by TSA, and he's been coached by Brad Couliard, who like a ton of people are coached by right now. But like he has his own kind of takes on that kind of PRI kind of movement kind of focus stuff. And you know, he is his own kind of man. So like it's, you know, he has his own influences. But yeah, no, it's just been interesting because his kind of focus, especially at the start, like we did this like, well, it was meant to be, I think, a half an hour call. It ended up being like a 2-hour call. Just about technique. Like I have a home gym, so we just took the camera into the home gym. We just started going through squat, bench, and deadlift at like 1:00 in the morning. Oh yeah, it was bad. Like, cause I was just like, yeah, I'll be up. And then he was like, "Do you want to go through techniques?" Like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Yeah, like I think like I wanted to work with him in particular because I felt like he'd be able to kind of color in some like blind spots that I felt like I had in my programming, not in my programming, sorry, in my coaching as a whole. You know, like he's a lot more movement focused than I ever would have been. And I've already learned some stuff from him, like even in that first consultation call, and he takes a similar approach to how I do, of like really backing off, you know, like taking the time to like say, okay, we're nowhere near a comp, so we're going to back off on intensity and frequency with the intent of like building it up over time. So that's been interesting to work with. But yeah, like as far as how my training's going, like squat, we haven't got up to any numbers that are like wild or anything. You know, we're still probably, the heaviest we've gone in squat is probably around 70-ish% for sixes, which isn't heavy at all. You know, like we're probably hitting like RP fours or so. The bench, we've changed technically. We've changed from a like more sinking kind of bench to a lighter touch bench. So that's then changed a couple of things down the chain of bench. So like I'm still kind of getting used to that. And then deadlift, I've been playing around with sumo the last while.
I like it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I've a super short torso, so like any deadlift is fine. Do you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. Like there's very few lifts I think I'm pretty well built for, but like just deadlift is one of them. It's just like, yeah, all muscle mass seems to go to my upper back. So, and I don't do any rows, so you know, like I can't go too far wrong. So I've been playing around with that a lot. I think we've really hit our stride there only recently. In that, like, I think my best conventional deadlift is like 300 at this point. But I did like 270 sumo at like a 6-ish, maybe a light 6.
I saw it.
So it's just like picking it up off the floor, like, you know. But I still don't know what the top end looks like with that as well, because like we haven't gone to 90+% yet. So I'm the extent of it is just I'm hopeful that it's going to be good, but it just is what it is. Like I don't know until you've done it. Like these estimated 1RMs, they're useful for like programming and like tracking stuff, but like we're not gonna actually use them. Do you know what I mean? Like we're not gonna actually live by them. You know, I don't go around saying I have an estimated 1RM of fucking 310. I have an actual 1RM of 300. You know, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I've said this to you before, I think on Instagram. Like, you're someone who seems to just kind of like plug away, and all of a sudden, I remember because I've been following you on Instagram for a long time, but like, you know, you seemed to have made a ton of progress in the last few years. You know, I think I remember around the time you first competed, you know, your numbers, I can't remember your exact numbers, but I'm sure you could quote them there. What were they when you first competed?
So I'll actually quote the ones from my in-house meet, which is funnier, like looking at it now. It's 170. It was 170 kilo squat. I failed 112 kilo bench. I think I finished on like 107 or something like that. And I deadlifted 225. And then my most recent numbers, like obviously I haven't competed in a billion years. So the most I've done in training was 270, 170, and 300. So,
and you seem to just plug away and just, you know, yeah, like that didn't happen overnight. It kind of happened in a real nice gradual way, right?
Yeah, like it's one of those things that like I've never been accused of being on gear because it's all been so slow and steady. Like I'm sure someone will join powerlifting in a year's time and say, geez, he's strong, so he's on gear. Do you know, like then that'll inevitably happen. I hope so. Like fingers crossed. I want to win a drugs test at my next meet. But yeah, so the whole story with that I look at it is I'm not talented at powerlifting at all. I'm not built for it at all. I'm 6 feet tall. I came into the sport at 80 kilos. Like that's none of those things line up well, basically. So basically the extent of it was I remember having like we had this guy Josh Hancock. Have you ever heard of him? He's a Canadian 74. Yeah, like super strong. But like he came over like when I just started basically, and I hadn't competed yet. And like I remember just talking to him one night. I was like, do you think I should go up a weight class? And then he was like, yeah, dude, like definitely. So the next, like from that point, basically the last 5 years, I've been like steadily going up like weight classes, and then just training really consistently over time. Like, cause then I haven't Like I haven't taken a week off in that time. Like not that I think someone doesn't need to take a week off, but like I haven't missed sessions because I didn't feel like it. You know, it was just a case of just constantly turning up and like doing the work. Like as in even in that time, like I've never gone into the gym going, oh, I'm gonna outwork everyone in this fucking room. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not one of those things. It's just like, no, I'm gonna pick up the weight this many times and like do what's on the sheet. And I'm gonna go home and just eat normal, you know, like as in I'm gonna eat enough that I'm in a calorie surplus. Like I've definitely had breaks in those weight gain phases, but like that's all it's really been. Like there was like, especially when I started, there was so many people way more talented than I was, or like way better than I was, total wise, and comparative like impressiveness wise, I guess. But like you forget about like how many of those take breaks or quit, or like, you know, they fly a bit too close to the sun, then just get injured for 6 months. You know, like you kind of forget about all that kind of stuff. So if you can just like, it is really the turtle and the hare kind of thing. You know, it's just like, just run your own race for a long time and then, you know, hope for the best. And go up some fucking weight classes. Like, then don't worry about like, you know, not having abs, you know. If your goal is to move weight, is to move weight. That's not an excuse to get super fat, but you know, I think we'll all fairly agree that like a lot of newer lifters can afford to go up weight classes, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're someone, to get back to what I was saying, you're someone who I would definitely point, particularly a lot of my younger lifters who, you know, have these aspirations of hitting records next year and all this kind of mad shit. You're someone I'd point them towards, because as you said, you know, you didn't come into it like I'm sure when you walked into the gym day one, no one was like, this guy. This is the guy who's, you know.
I was.
You were the.
I was that guy. No, yeah. So, yeah, because you're. I know what you're talking about. Like we have the exact same things. We have just the Limerick equivalents to a lot of your guys as well, down here doing the exact same thing. And I was like that as well, because when I started powerlifting, I was like 21 or something like that. So I had 2 years left as a junior. So my thing was like, man, if I can fucking just like all gas, no brakes for 2 years, I can definitely get on the Irish team. So that was my goal. Like once I hit openings, and like it really doesn't matter. Which, you know, I sympathize for like some of the beginners, especially the guys who are getting into it like at 16, 17, because they're like, well, damn, like the barrier for entry is pretty low. Like for some sub junior weight classes, you know, like they don't need a wild total. And they kind of feel the pressure that they're like meant to do that, you know? Like, it's just a tough sell for some people, you know? It's tough to talk people through that, you know? Like, especially considering it's really like, it's akin to the leave insert in a lot of ways, you know, like sub junior. It's like, it's the most important thing until you get past it, then it's not, you know, like.
That's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, like that's, it's just, it happens. And like, it's hard to explain that. It's really hard to explain that to people, or to like take the, because I'm sure like the problem we have is like that they want to do this before they're a sub junior, but we'd rather they had a good junior career. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially if they're coming into us at like 17, you know, like where it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of a tight squeeze. Like the juice isn't really worth the squeeze here. It's like, it's only one outing that you could potentially have, or you could, you know, put behind yourself 3 really good years of training and have like 2 or 3 years in the juniors, you know? Like, yeah, it's a tough sell for people.
I think you kind of have to be like forceful of it as well, because at the end of the day, that's why these people are coming to you. Like, you know, they're coming for that guidance. You know, I am one person who wishes they had that guidance. You know, because like I'm by no means super talented either, but I had a pretty good squat when I was younger, and I thought like that if I just work my ass off, like outperform everyone, then, or outwork everyone, then I'll squat at an IPF world record next year. Like,
okay.
And you know how that results. Like I'm still dealing with certain knock-on effects from that. You know, I'm still dealing with even like confidence issues from 6 years ago. You know, when it comes to training, because of injuries and whatnot that came from that period of time. So I've definitely taken an approach of being somewhat like forceful, particularly with sub juniors, when they come to me and they say like, "Hey, I want to drop down a weight class and I want to hit these records." I'm like, you're 17, you're very lean, you're quite tall, you're not dropping down a weight class. that's not how this is gonna happen, you know. But yeah, it's really important, really, really important.
Yeah, it's
last question before maybe we just talk a little bit more shite for a while. What's been, actually no, we have 2 more questions, my bad. I'll ask you this one. What's kind of been the highlight, if any, of your time in the sport, both kind of as a coach and or an athlete?
Yeah, like I don't know, like the athlete highlights haven't been great because, like, you know, like they're good things. Like I take pride in, like, you know, the last 2 comps I went 9 for 9 and I was pretty happy with that, you know. I think the things that I'll look back on fondly in powerlifting, like the highlights, are the kind of, they're either yet to come if they're individual like highlight days, or they're just like, I'll look back at the whole lot of it and say, yeah, that like the talking shit in between sets was the funnest part. But like from the coaching perspective, it was definitely the experience of like going to Lithuania to Euros. Like that was, it's exactly what I thought it would be. Like it was a lot of fun. Just getting to handle some of my lifters, some other international level lifters, and just seeing how the whole thing goes. Like, you know, I was eager to go to Belarus, like the only person who was probably, but that didn't come to be. So hopefully I'll get to go to that when things come back around. Like, I think if it was like one lift, one kind of moment that I was like, this is fucking class and this is why I'm like doing this shit, is like, I think so at Euros I was handling Jack, and he narrowly missed out basically on winning his weight class. He missed like 345. Just one of those things. Like, it was one of, I think we could have prepared better, as far as like he could have got in a bit earlier, and we could have like reduced stress a little bit more the week prior, because he didn't look 100% of what he had looked on the day, you know. But so we did that. He missed the 345 and we came second, so still super proud of him. But like, you know, we should have had that. In, you know, had things gone how we expected it to go, we would have had it. And then only like, I think 3 months later, we had nationals, and we basically had the meet we were supposed to have. You know, it was just something super satisfying about, like, as the day went on, like, picked off some really easy numbers that we knew he should have had in Lithuania, and then absolutely like smashing the 345, like, which none of the numbers we needed, because he had like a good 100 kilo clearance on anyone behind him. It was just it was more of a showcase for him, and just to show that he kind of could do it, you know. And I think a lot of people like point to that as like their highlight of like that nationals, because like he's just one of those people who can kind of like stop a room, just because he's so damn big, weights no one else is touching, and he just has this kind of weird like presence about him, you know. So that was one of the biggest, like, funnest I guess moments, individual moments. And I know there'll be more in time to come. Like, even this year, like, I have like there's individual lifts for like individual lifters. There'll be huge milestones that, like, because we've been working together for so long, they'll be huge to me, like, you know.
Awesome. That's really cool. That I was so sad I couldn't be there for Jack's flight, because the videos of that nationals, first of all, was unbelievable. That the whole setup and like the vibe, the the first day when I was there was just like something else, unlike any competition, even better than like the obviously going to an international comp carries its own excitement because it's so big and important. But like, yeah, that 2020 nationals was, I think, the best Irish Powerlifting Federation competition by far yet. I think it'll be hard to beat going forward as well because it was damn good competition.
I still cite Belfast. Was it 2017 or 2016? I cite that as like the best. Just still, like, as in having Gino there. I know like the individual competitions weren't as good, you know, like just the classes weren't as stacked. It was kind of like a showcase for like individual lifters, but like whatever it was about it, you know, it's just, maybe it was just where I was in the sport at the time of like, it was all new to me. So like, this was crazy, like, you know, but that's the one I always cite as like my favorite competition I've been to.
It's really good. It was really good. What do you think is the future of powerlifting? What do you think the future holds for us? Like, you know, in the short time we've been in it, which is what, maybe 5 or 6, 7 years, it's changed a lot. You know, it's come on a whole pile. So what do you think maybe the next 5 years hold for the sport?
So I guess we'll just talk about it. Because I think we should like look at it from the point of view of like, okay, what's it look like internationally and what's it look like domestically? So domestically, some of the things I'd like to see are, because we're like basically a continuation of what we did, trying to get back to the standards of like, because I think the standards of competitions in like last year kind of took a dip. Was it the year prior, 2019, kind of took a dip as far as like SummerSlam. I did that was like shocking, but that wasn't necessarily their fault as much as like Irish Muscle Power just kind of fucked it, you know. Were you at that meet, or either you?
Connor, you were there, no? I didn't end up going to that, no.
So what happened was,
which meet are we talking about?
I'll describe it and you'll know the clusterfuck. So what happened was Irish Muscle Power were just like, okay, we'll just have all of powerlifting in a line, like right next to each other with very little space. So we had a shared warm-up room with 2 racks, and then like the crowd was kind of like merged in together. So like I'd say there was only 10 meters allocated for each like platform. Do you know what I mean? So it was like a 3 platform meet. You could hear all the cues, except for they're entirely different federations. It was wild how sucky that was. And then the kind of comp then straight after is in like, you know, just forgot the aux cord for the first for the first flight. So like I remember I had a lifter, Chris. Chris was squatting 275 for the first time and there was no music whatsoever. And like you forget like how like that you run out of things to say in a minute, you know? Like I was like, come on, Chris, let's go. Like, you know, like, trying to get the crowd going a bit, you know, so it's not as noticeable if there's no music. And then like, you know, you just run out of shit to say. You just start repeating on loop then again. And then the warm-up situation there was just like, was poor. So like,
quick interjection, sorry, but I have to say it before I forget or before we move on. Chris is training. Oh my God.
Oh, Chris is a stud.
In the last 2 years. Oh my God, man. One of the strongest dudes.
Yeah, he's got a set of wheels on him. Yeah, he was one of the ones I was referring to as far as like individual lifts. Like I think like when he squats 300 or whatever plus, like that'll be like a big kind of like holy shit, like that was, you know, that'll be a highlight to me. Granted, like he's training from home so much now that like we can't really opt for singles as much. So like he'll probably come back to the gym and like 300 will be like a, you know, if we run like a 4-week block, it'll probably be like a week 2 or 3 block, a 2 or 3 single, which is wild. It'll be within the scopes of training, or else it'll be like at the end of a block for a double or some shit, you know, which is wild.
He seems to be a fella who just like somehow manages to take his previous 1 rep max and turn it into a rep max, just over and over and over again. Like it's insane.
No, like I can never get over it, just as far as just how good someone can get at squatting. Do you know, it's like, because we joked about like when we're doing sets of 5, like Matt, it'd be gas crack if you did 600 for 5, and then I just did 600 for 5. It's like, cool, no doubt.
Sweet.
Yeah, so like he's, like that will be
also he has one of the best Instagram names on Instagram.
Chris the Thor, yeah.
Chris the Thor, love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can go back to the future of powerlifting.
Shit, what were we talking about? Chris is the future of powerlifting.
Fact.
No, yeah, he'll fucking, I'm looking forward to seeing him whip up that fucking 105 squat record. But as far as like if the comps return to how they were, which totally attainable. There wasn't that much wrong. It's just when things do go wrong, they go fucking, they're a bit of a mess. And I know there was like organizational issues with those, just because unforeseen things kind of happened. One thing I'd love to see, which I don't know if it's a thing that's even possible, or like if it just creates so much more work, would be like the nationals move to an extremely neutral location, like somewhere in the Midlands, like that literally suits basically no one, but like that would mean that everyone has to go there to powerlift, and it would give people an actual, a different look for a powerlifting meet. Because like, having it in, say if you were to have it in CityGym or to have it in abs, you're instantly giving a club a big advantage, as far as like they only need to walk over to the gym they train in every day. I'd love to see something like, I know hotels don't garner the same kind of like atmosphere, but like the USAPL make it work. Do you know what I mean? They have huge crowds into, where do they normally, they move around their nationals, but like say for like something like the Arnold, they have these huge meets in convention centers in Ohio with nothing else to do other than powerlift, So I think for a weekend, like it would suit most people, and like it would give the fairest representation of like, okay, this is a neutral ground for no one. This isn't no one has the upper hand here, really. Like maybe a couple of people in the Midlands might have, but whatever, who cares?
The 3 powerlifters in the Midlands might have an advantage.
Which I don't think. It's just like, it's just one of those things that like, I'm sure people wouldn't take to that too well, because they'd be like, oh, but now we have to travel. But like, so does everyone else, That's what you're expecting everyone else to do,
Yep.
I don't know. What do you think of that? Is that like fucking a cold take or what?
I think it's a really good take. Obviously, like I've never organized a meet,
Yeah.
I've never done that, so I can only imagine how much more there is to it than there appears to be. But at face value, that sounds incredible. Like that sounds fantastic, especially for someone like me who like has to travel it's in Belfast or Limerick, or it's in abs. They're all 3 hours minimum away from me, so it definitely would be nice to have that be a shared experience. Everyone would be in the same boat, like somewhere in the Midlands, like you said. I think that definitely would go a long way in evening out the playing field and reducing some of that inherent advantage, especially at a competition like nationals.
Like that's the only reason I think for it, because like I think at regional level comps it makes total sense going to the same few gyms, because they're tried and tested, and like you can get great atmosphere from them, and like that's one of the things that it's huge. Like it's always great atmosphere, but like it would be, and I know as well it's just cheaper to run it in abs or CityGym, because there isn't the same venue fees, like straight up. Like that's just the thing. Like it's I totally understand the economic side of it, but if we're just to talk about like equality amongst all competitors, and then just everyone there for the focus reason powerlifting, it would be good crack for that kind of stuff to happen. Obviously, like God knows when that'll even happen, but we'll see.
I feel like there's probably 2 contingencies. There's probably a group of people who probably want powerlifting to move towards more the kind of USAPL model, you know, the like professional look, except for the lifetime membership thing. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Anyway, that more professional look, you know, make it look like a professional sport, something that people should kind of respect. And then I'm sure there's another contingency who wanted to go kind of the opposite way. I've heard it kind of the kind of darts model, you know, where you have like this darts competition going on and you've got like 100 people in the audience drinking pints, and you know, I think probably there's room for there to be a little bit of both, you know, like we said, at the beauty of having kind of the system that we have, you know, the regional, national. I would like to see maybe somewhere in between, like an in between regional and national competition. I think at regionals you can have maybe that more laid back approach, but I definitely would like to see nationals take that professional look. You know,
I think
with regards to like,
sorry.
Go on, sorry.
I think like even from the point of view of like, if you were to put it at a neutral venue and make it like very different, that it's like this is its own kind of thing, like I think people wouldn't have the same kind of issue as like for like fees wise, you know, like of paying, you know, €100 for nationals, because like, you know, you're going to this specific venue for this this specific thing, whereas how like I think people are a bit like confused when they're like, okay, we're going to what is a regional like comp location, but we're spending 80 quid on it now, you know, instead of the whatever the 50 or 60 it used to be, you know. Like I definitely felt like that with the SummerSlam, just like, and again, I know that wasn't their fault as far as like they didn't know the space they're going to be allocated, but it still, you know, was national level prices, but like the standard of reffing was probably poorer, and the just because like they couldn't find refs, and the is Connor gone?
He is gone. He will hopefully be back.
Cool. But the standard reffing, the standard reffing was probably poor because they couldn't find the same kind of refs, and the and just the venue was like awful. Like, and I don't think anyone thought that was, you know, a good meet. Like, it just was what it was. Yeah, like I think they can. I think it would be cool to see them play around with things like that, play around with ideas like that. Like, you know, we'll see. And then I suppose, like, I guess we'll move on to do you have anything more to say, like, domestically about Irish powerlifting?
A little bit. Like, I think the federation are in a tough spot, you know, because they're like, or like any federation, any organizers like this are in a really tough spot, and not to like appease to them, but like they're faced with all of the responsibility, you know. They're faced, at least outwardly, with the responsibility of growing the sport, when I think in reality the growth of the sport comes, they're like almost in the middle, and I think the growth of the sport comes from either side. It comes from like the international scene, you know, the growth of the sport internationally, like YouTube videos, you know, big lifters with big followings on social media, and then the opposite side of that, they come from clubs, you know, coaches, people like Odyssey, for example. You know, we've only been around for 2 years, and we've got, you know, 40 or 50 new lifters who weren't in the sport before that. You know, and we're pushing them towards powerlifting, towards the Irish Powerlifting Federation. So yeah, I think it's a really tough thing to talk about, and tough thing to conceptualize, because it's so up in the air. There's so many moving parts. Like,
yeah, like it is that exactly. Like it's really hard to talk about, because you don't want to, like, obviously you don't want to talk shit, but then you don't want to always give like a free pass either, as far as like, you know, like, I'll never pretend SummerSlam was a good meet, you know, like, as in it just isn't, like, do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. The same with like Connacht. Like, if people saw the warm-up roomers, and like, I can't pretend like that was a good meet, you know, like, in whereas I will say, like, there was other meets in CityGym, like, I think it was like one of the CityGym meets beforehand, or like two beforehand, like, it was during the summer, and like, it was literally one of the best meets I've ever been to. You know, it was just so fucking fun. Like, there was just a really good you know, as we said, like that kind of relaxed vibe, but like there was always kind of action going on, you know. Same with ones and abs. Like I've done even like low key comps and abs. Like I did there was like a January comp like directly after nationals. It was like the week after, but it was one of the funnest comps I've ever done, you know. And that just says a lot to like why those kind of like locations are so good for comps. But yeah, I suppose, yeah, it's just hard to talk about, you know, because you don't want to be seen as like too critical, but like you don't want to ignore what has happened, you know. Yeah, like, and then nationally, like domestically, I don't think there's much else to talk about or to change, because like I agree with you, like as in the growth of the sport does come from the kind of more club level of because like the federation, it's not their responsibility to do like trailers or ads or anything like that to like, you want to powerlift here and you want to start powerlifting. It's not their responsibility. Like, and they don't have I don't think they'll ever have really the infrastructure to do that, you know. So it does really come from the clubs, like getting people into beginners lifting classes, just getting the barbell in people's hands and then just like taking it from there. Because a lot of our lifters, you know, they're friends of friends, you know, like, or they're just young fellas who bring in 3 more of their friends, and then they all start working with, say, like the one coach or whatever, you know, and they kind of take it from there. Yeah, it's just down to the clubs for building, like for building on what's already there.
It's funny you mentioned that, because we talked about this maybe the week before last, how like, I don't know about you guys, maybe Gar could speak more to this, but like I've spent some money on advertising, and I've put out some Instagram ads and all that crack, and never have they netted anywhere close to the return of one fella bringing 2 of his friends, you know, and them bringing 2 of their friends. That word of mouth model is really important, and that's why clubs are so important. And I think maybe if anything, and again, this is total me shiting on about something I really have no idea about, like more supports or more how to word it, more of a focus on kind of, it's a quote I use all the time, you know, high tide raises all ships, as kind of cringe as it is, but just more of a focus on building all these clubs up together and kind of upskilling as we go. If we really want to build a sport, you know, if we really want powerlifting to grow, more club support I think would be fantastic, you know. How to employ that, you're talking to the wrong guy, but
Gar has definitely done those ads before, but like he's just a fucking workhorse as far as like the business side of things, as well as being a coach, like which people don't, you know, these are all the things that people don't even see. But like he's doing like copywriting courses and all these kind of things to know how to word things that'll pique people's interest. So like we've had like as a result of his work, had a ton of success of just bringing people in, you know, like as in, and like some of these people, you know, they'll come in, but like they might never compete, but they'll essentially powerlift for, you know, a few years, like, or consistently powerlift, and they just won't have an interest in putting on the singlet. You know, some like it just depends the person, you know. But yeah, like I totally agree. It just comes from that club level, like internationally, God knows. Like I don't think powerlifting will ever land in the Olympics, and if it does, it'll look really different. It'll probably be like, you know, I'd imagine it'll be like 2 lifts, you know, per exercise. So it'll be like squat, bench, and deadlift. You have 6 attempts. I'd imagine it'll be less weight classes, probably, similar to how the World Games is set up. So it'll look hugely different. But I see a lot of people talk about like, oh, it's bad for the sport, it's good for the sport. Like I know personally in Ireland, it would be huge for the sport of powerlifting in Ireland if that did happen, because it'd be a lot easier for them to get a huge amount of funding. Like I know sports like martial arts sports that are in the Olympics, like karate and is it taekwondo or whatever it's called, but they literally receive enormous grants that like the lads, like they'd be a huge difference for the lifters. There'd be a huge difference for the lifters. There'd be a huge difference just for the aesthetic of the sport. Like you'd be able to afford like professional live stream teams, like these these far better venues. That's just looking at just the credibility of the sport in the eyes of Sporting Ireland would be so much higher if that did happen. So, that would be cool. It would also bring in, a lot more like, untested lifters into the tested side, just because there's that carrot there to do so. But that's fine. We'd have the funding for testing, so like it should even itself out in some way. Do you know what I mean?
It'll kind of match the standard of every other sport with regards to testing.
Yeah,
there will be cheaters, and that's just
naturally, yeah. It'll just be it is what it is kind of thing, So I would like to see that. I don't think it's going to ever happen, but what do you think? What's your opinion on domestic or international?
I wish I disagreed with you or something. Like that could probably sum up this whole podcast, because it's just been a whole lot of me being like, yeah. But exactly. I like you don't ever think it will happen. I feel like there's just too many sides pulling too many different ways, and that's even true, I think, on a domestic level, never mind international level, and I think especially if there was going to be changes to the sport, I personally, again, if it gets it out there, what you said right there is actually would be a great change. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time, but just having 2 attempts instead of 3, I mean, it would be different, but we'd adapt and we'd be fine. We just take our opener in the warm-up room or whatever.
Yeah.
But it would cut down. The competitions would be a sixth of the time, right? Are my maths right there? It would shorten the length of a competition anyway, which is
2/3
imperative. 2/3 of the time. That's right. Or a sixth of the time.
Like what?
It'd be 2/3 of the time, which is huge. That's we've talked about this on the podcast before, but watching powerlifting, even if you're super into powerlifting, it gets difficult. It can be tiresome. So I think that would go a long way in helping that. But I think a lot of people would have would have big problems with any changes whatsoever.
But that's always,
and I think
that's always the case. Do you mean
obviously
any changes to literally fucking anything someone will draw issue with? And I don't know if it's necessary to change it from 3 lifts to 2 lifts, from 3 attempts to 2 attempts, across the board. But I think that's what would happen just from for the Olympics perspective, just so it's easier to stream and stuff.
Yeah, of course. I think either way, that whole thing is going to be pretty divisive if it ever even comes anywhere near to fruition. Which would bring kind of maybe not more problems than it's worth, but it would be problematic in some sense, kind of like the whole world powerlifting thing. That whole fiasco. Over towards the Australia, Oceania side of the world. It's a tough one. Personally, I think as long as there's guys on the ground kind of who really genuinely care about the sport, and I personally, I identify as being one of those people. I genuinely care about this sport. I love this sport for some reason, and I will continue to put my efforts into growing the sport as best I can. As long as there's these people on the ground, the sport will continue to grow. The problem is we won't have logarithmic growth. It'll be a very slow linear growth that might not even match the increase in the world's population. So that wouldn't do a whole pile for us. But it's tough, almost Pandora's box to open. It's a really
what I'd be interested to see at some stage is if someone takes the initiative in Ireland, a top level lifter or someone who's pretty handy or has potential to be top level lifter, and they just go full bore into like the YouTube or whatever, you know, if they become basically an influencer like a Russ Orhey just here, or like say the equivalent to whatever Rob Lipsett is, but for powerlifting, like I'd love to see what that would do for the actual sport if all gym bros knew the powerlifting Rob Lipsett. Do you know what I mean? And like that's how they're like, I reckon I can do that. Or like, you know, I feel like, you know, a lot of people got into the sport because of Johnny Candido, because he looked like a totally normal dude. He's like, if he can do it, even though he's very athletic, don't get me wrong, he's absurdly like, he has pretty good genetics for this, like, but
I think it was on that quickly. He did a video with always forget his name. Hamstring Pappy is his Instagram handle. Sean Noriega, yeah. He did a video with Sean Noriega the other day, and they're in the same weight class. And Johnny looks like just a normal dude next to Sean. Like,
yeah,
you know?
I saw him in a video spotting Ashton Ruska, and I know Ashton Ruska literally looks like fucking Superman's trainer, but he like he just looked like a normal dude. He looked like just some fellow who walked in off the street in a highlighter green t-shirt. You know, it was it's wild, but yeah, like I think people look at him and they're like, I could do that. Do you know, like that looks fun. Do you know, I'd be very interested to see if someone took the initiative to do that exact thing, and then like I think that's what could cause like the biggest fucking growth of anything. You know, obviously easier said than done, especially with the culture in Ireland of like, look at this guy with notions, or look at this girl with fucking notions. Like it's hard to get around.
Thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to get around that, but like it would be super interesting to see the effect that could have. You know,
definitely.
You know,
definitely. Yeah, man. We just did an hour and a half. Felt like about 10 minutes.
Sweet, cool.
There we go. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're gonna get Connor back, but I'm sure he'll only echo what I'm about to say, and that is, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate you coming on. And as I said, I have really, genuinely, thoroughly enjoyed following along with your training over the last few years, and I'm delighted. I was saying to you on Instagram when I was texting you, asking you, it's very strange to me that we haven't sat down and had a chat. At some point. So I'm delighted, genuinely, to finally have gotten to do so.
Well, I feel like that would have inevitably happened, only that like literally COVID happened, so we can't leave our fucking houses. But like, you know, it's just one of those things. Like, I'm sure whatever nationals equivalent or junior nationals equivalent, we probably would have like chatted a bit like at one of those, but they just haven't happened. You know?
Yeah. My one interaction with you, actually, you might not remember this, but I was kind of annoyed. Not at you, was at the CityGym competition in 2019.
Yeah.
And it's my first real comp in like 4 years, and I'm fucking pumped. I'm excited, and I hadn't slept the night before. The day was going well. Got to my second deadlift, did a 17-second rep and failed it. And third attempt comes. I'm in the back getting absolutely like doing whatever I needed to do. I think I had drank 5 monsters at that point. I was like, and I'm not at all a hype person. Like, I'll get hyped at competitions if that's what an athlete needs, but I train to my girlfriend's terrible music, and I'm real calm and easygoing. But I was going absolutely ballistic at this one, and Connor goes missing on my third attempt, and I need talc. And Connor comes back. I'm about to go to the platform, and he's like, "Come here," and he just talcs me in the warm up room.
Oh, no.
And I remember you come over, and you're just like,
"I'm that guy."
That's really.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but
no,
I
do vaguely remember it, but like I was just gonna go, it's not a big deal. No, yeah, like the only reason I was like, yeah, like obviously just whoever's listening, don't do that. Like, as in, it's not that big a deal. Like, talc rarely makes that much of a difference anyway. And
it's annoying. It's like going into a gym and throwing chalk everywhere, disrespecting. Don't ever do that. I'm ashamed to have done that.
Yeah. No, like I've actually had bad experience with that. As far as like my fucking girlfriend, the comp before that, it was like there was something like talc or like monster like spilled on the deadlift platform. So when she was warming up, she slipped and her fucking foot went under the plate, and then like it whacked her foot. So like she had this like mangled toe going out to her deadlifts, you know. But like, you know, adrenaline kicked in at that point, so she just didn't give a shit. You know, like she just got pretty hyped. So like, she carried on. But yeah, no, it's just being aware that that shit can happen, you know.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Fact. All right, we'll call it there again. Really appreciate it, man.
Cool,
Thanks
man.
a lot. Boom, everyone. Episode 8 of the Odyssey podcast. Thanks again for watching. Unfortunately, no Connor here. This feels weird, but there it is. So if you have anything you'd like us to talk about in the next one, anyone you would like us to talk to, just let us know. And actually, quickly, Jack, where can people find you?
Yeah, only on Instagram at Jack PJ Thornton. I think that's my name.
Sweet.
That's it.
Sweet. Boom. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again in the next 7 days. Bye-bye.